I was talking with my father a couple days ago on the phone. He mentioned he had listened to the beginning of last month's podcast on his walk earlier that day. In it, he heard the guest Charles recount how he healed from the trauma of abuse, neglect, and incarceration, how he overcame struggles with addiction and mental health to become a pillar of his community. Having only listened to the beginning, my father asked, how did he do it? How did he do it? By Charles's account, he was changed by a single act of kindness he showed another. And while this experience of compassion may have started him down the road to enlightenment, you'll hear in today's podcast Charles discuss something else that sustained him. I don't claim sobriety, I claim recovery. What Charles is alluding to in that statement is suboxone, a medically assisted treatment for opioid use disorder. With its help, Charles was able to experience recovery from heroin addiction. Heroin was bad. I mean, it was horrible bad. But fentanyl is so much worse. I'll ask clients if they've ever overdosed, and they'll tell me numbers like 8, 9, or 10 times. Narcan is the only reason they are still alive. So many of them say they've lost friends in the double digits due to overdose. What really sticks with you is how young they all are. Now, I don't want to go too deep into the weeds on this and talk about how dopamine works or percentages of relapse and recovery. Instead, I'll talk directly from my experience as a drug and alcohol counselor and peer working in a detox facility. It is hard to express the agony some people coming off fentanyl can go through. Soaked with sweat, they'll shit and puke all over themselves. You'll clean them up, and they'll do it all over again. They will thrash, kick, and yell all night. They'll stare at you, scream their skin is on fire, and then run out the door to find some relief. It is an experience you will not easily forget. I remember approaching my supervisor and asking her, what the fuck are we doing here? That's how it was before suboxone. When it works, it is nothing short of a miracle. In under an hour, fentanyl users can go from what I described before to casually reading promotional materials posted on the bulletin board in the hall. Even I have not recovered enough for that. After the acute withdrawal, there's a period of post-acute withdrawal. I've heard it can last 6 months, a year, or longer. People suffer anxiety, depression, and a general inability to take pleasure in things. Add to this the cravings, and the chance of relapse is high. I mean, really high. Or you could take suboxone. It can be the difference between lasting recovery and a life absolutely cursed. So here comes the disclaimer. Suboxone isn't the only treatment out there. It doesn't work for everyone. It has its risks and downsides. Talk to your doctor. I am not a doctor. Talk to your doctor. But back to how Charles did it. Well, he built community, repaired family, got a job, became spiritually fit, sought therapy, and received medical help for his mental health. But I'm sure Charles would agree, suboxone was a huge part of his success. So, you had a daughter here last time.
Yes.
And you got pretty emotional.
Yes.
Do you feel you shared stuff that you had shared in front of her before, or is just saying it over again?
I believe it's saying it over again, and a lot of stuff we said, like we necessarily never sat down face to face and spoke. It was pretty much like the unspoken forgiveness, you know?
Yeah. Well, she sure seemed bright.
Yeah, she's
sounds like she's really hustling for your company, too.
Yeah, she is. She's a hard worker. She earns it for sure. She's got that good work ethic like myself, you know.
Yeah. Well, I see you brought a list of paper.
I did. I was just trying to get a little more on point.
Yeah.
You know, I felt I was pretty much all over the place on the last one. It's one thing I've shared my story many, many times. But sitting next to my daughter and sharing it, you know, was a little more difficult.
Distracting a bit.
Yeah, it was pretty difficult for me. She did a lot better than I did, I believe.
Yeah, she was motivated. She's passionate, you know.
She's very passionate, and very good.
I'll probably bring that out in her. I wouldn't doubt.
She always tells me, you know, because you know, that I'm too humble and all those kind of things, you know, but I've had an ego before, and I know what it gets me, and it's usually not good. So I try to keep that in check.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, I'm a little bipolar too. You know, I just inside I'm doing cartwheels and flips. You know, just because I'm not smiling, I'm very happy individual.
I understand.
Yeah.
Well, what did you want to talk about?
You got a cat too.
Oh yeah, I got lots of cats.
I guess just touching back on like the turning point. I remember you asked me what was the turning point. What was the You know, and it was it was a time sitting in an individual's garage, and we're getting high on meth, and you know, my kids were up in Seattle. I'm down here doing my thing, running and stealing, and just being a shithead, and poor me, and you know, and he straight told me, he's like, you know, he looked at me and said, "You're a thief." And I said, "Yeah, no, you know, that's what I said, thank you," you know. And he goes, "No, you're stealing from your kids." And I said, I've never stole from my kids. I would never steal from my kids. And what he told me was that I'm stealing my time, their time, and my time from the kids. And at that point, I never looked at it like I was robbing them of my time, of their time to get with me, because I was choosing to do drugs and medicate, you know, for my mental health and addiction. And so it just kind of put a thing in my head. And then when I went into jail the last time, you know, it was the day before Father's Day is when I exited out of jail into treatment. And so Father's Day, 6/18/17, Father's Day was my clean date. And so, but on that day, it was like I had to take a look back at, like, you know, when she was sharing about, you know, on her computer, she had the jail roster and the couch, all that stuff. It's like they had to feel all that. You know what I mean? My mom had to feel that. My grandma had to feel that. My kids had to feel that pain and that loss and abandonment, where I had heroin to put in my arms, like to not have to feel it. And so that was like, it's like that light bulb clicked in my head. I'm like, fuck, man, you know, I need to get my shit together, you know. Just admired how strong they are to be able to go through that, you know. And so, and I think that's a lot of what it is like we're just trying to shut off that pain, right?
Heroin seems to be good for that, like opiates. It was developed for physical pain, but it really is amazing. It's just like any kind of pain.
Any kind of pain.
Any kind of pain, yeah.
Any kind of pain, emotional pain. Meth, you get so high you don't even think about it. You're just on a whole nother tangent.
I was feeling no pain. I'll tell you that.
Right? And heroin, it just puts you in a whole different perspective of life. And, you know, a lot of times it was just trying to stay well, you know, not trying to be sick. And I've tried recovery so many different times, man, and it was always just the sickness and the puking and the shitting for days and weeks, and then you give up, and then you know, you say, "Oh, I'm just going to do a little bit just so I can get off that edge," and then you're back on another gambit, you know. And so I did want to share how medicated assisted treatment helped save my life this time.
Absolutely. Sure.
It was able to help me get over those pause, those aches and pains, but not only that, it was able to help me mentally and emotionally be able to still cope.
Sure. Now there's two types of medicated treatment that I'm familiar with. Which one did you take advantage of?
The suboxone treatment program. So they
as opposed to the methadone.
As opposed to the methadone, yeah. I was a methadone addict for years. It was recreational, and it was a hell of a drug to get off of. So the medicated assisted treatment is really the catalyst that helped me. And, you know, I caught a lot of shit. I still do catch a lot of shit from people. The stigma, you know, is really, really strong, especially 7.5 years ago in Clark County. the stigma is really strong around that. And, people say, oh, he's just cheating. You know what I mean? But I call it's recovery. It's my recovery, right? Mm-hmm. It's what works for me.
And that's interesting too. It's like my recovery isn't necessarily strict to like other people's, like other programs or stuff like that. It's something I claim and something, it's personal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So like you asked me, like, we talked the other day about like my recovery day. Like my recovery day and my AA birthday are 2 different dates. They're about 6 months apart. Yeah. Because the day I started recovery, because I find that recovery, it's a state of mind. It's not necessarily even a state of sobriety sometimes, And like, it's really about just get off that train,
Absolutely, yeah. There's the dry drunk, people call it, just for lack of better words. And then there's a person that's actually taking in the stuff, taking suggestions, learning, and moving forward with their life. And you could be recovering from things that you may never even had. So that could be confusing for people too, right?
Yeah.
It's individualized. Mm-hmm. It really is. And unfortunately, a lot of people see it's their way or the highway. And if that's not the way for you, then, whatever. But I believe that Clark County and Vancouver has a lot better approach to recovery than most places do.
I think so. Yeah,
I really do.
I would agree with that.
I really, really do. In the beginning, the first year and a half or so, I think it was about a year and a half in, I got introduced to what was called medicated-assisted treatment. Medicated-assisted recovery. Mm-hmm. And it's a whole program on the West Coast back then. And I tried to introduce it over here, in Clark County, Vancouver. And, I'd set up the meetings at the Resource Center like every week, just like a regular recovery meeting. And, it was few and far between if I ever got anybody to show up. I finally ended up shutting it down after a year and a half of giving it a go, And I just figured, the stigma was still really strong back then, Mm-hmm. And so I'm happy to hear that Lifeline has got that going again for their program. And because it gives that self-identify, right? Like a person that's never done meth but drank, it's hard for them to identify together. Mm-hmm. Of course, the feelings are always the same, right? We've felt those same kind of feelings, but the situations and those things that you can bond over, there's a lot of difference on, right? Mm-hmm. And so for the individuals that are on medicated assisted treatment, they're meeting with people that are going through the same thing. Mm-hmm. And, maybe getting the same kind of stigma at the end of the day, stuff like that. But also learning those things and values that they can move forward with while being on medicated assisted treatment. Now, I don't promote this stuff. I don't suggest it to anybody. That's not my thing. That's what worked for me. Mm-hmm. That's what worked for me. So I want to make sure I got that out there, So, yeah, I don't claim sobriety. I claim recovery. But, it all started with that drug court system. And like I said, Debbie Akers and the people there, Shauna and stuff like that, and Corey, my drug court mentor, and just seeing, a person that had, my mentor's got just holes and scars all over his body from the abuse he did to himself out there on the streets, homeless, and to see that he's living a better way of life and working a career as a peer and helping other people through those struggles was very attractive to me, like I said before. And so, but through the drug court system, I got to meet the Recovery Cafe, was a huge supporter of mine. The CVAB was a huge supporter of mine. Mm-hmm. That's where I started my volunteering and my service work.
Now, CVAB is a peer network, yeah?
Yeah, they're a peer network.
They call themselves 360 Peer now.
Peer 360 now, yeah. They're huge. They're doing a lot of great stuff. They got housing now. I mean, they exploded. Mm-hmm. They're doing things right, and I really like that. And then, part of we used to have the Clark County Recovery Coalition here in town. Mm-hmm. And that was a huge part. That's where I got my advocacy from. And that's where I got the fire under me to, like, our voice does matter. And so going up there for Recovery Advocacy Day up in Olympia, and just going up there in drones. Actually, that one year they got a bus back then, and we were able to go up to the WRA Recovery Day at the Mariners game. It's just stuff like that, like having fun in recovery, doing things, not just being a glumlot in recovery. Stuff like that was very attractive to me, and those are kind of things that I want to be able to provide to new people that come through, right? And just be able to provide them with the options and opportunities to succeed in their recovery. And that's the peer aspect, right? Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to touch a little bit about that. Like I said, and then just like what inspired me to start Thrive, we spoke a little bit about that. That poor lady Tessa that's living under, and just being able to provide the access to resources just all in one day at one time.
But this is Thrive to Survive.
Thrive to Survive, yeah. Yeah, and just seeing the growth of it, like the connection of it really is like what we can't do alone, we can really do together, right? And seeing how the growth and the change has come about in that, and how it's sprouted into recovery housing now. And we're looking to expand into, we have men's and looking to expand into women's recovery housing as well, because it's one of the highest needs right now, especially women with children, or women with children with dogs or pets.
So Thrive to Survive, in case you don't remember from the last time we talked, now essentially it's a networking event.
Yes.
It's its core. Of big industry professionals and organizations to get together, offer services to those in need, but also to network with each other and form, basically coalitions.
Yes.
But now you're saying that also you got into housing.
Yes.
That's impressive. I didn't know you went into that. So.
Yeah, so we got our first house up and off the ground. We applied for the mental health sales tax grant, and were awarded, and we started the program in 2024, January 1st, 2024. We got secured the house and got some drug court community service individuals to come help paint the house and get it prepped up and ready for the men to move in. And it's a 3-year project that we have with the county, and they gave us the resources and funding to be able to be successful and build that program. They offered us the one house and the operation expense, for the 3 years, which has never been done before in Washington State. So it's definitely a blessing. And so with the housing, though, it's a 3-phase program that we also have a full-time peer that's individual that's lived experience, that's been through the drug court systems themselves, that's there Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, helping the men overcome their barriers, helping them get their ID, taking them to their appointments, taking them to help go see their kids, their visits with their children, helping them get their license back. All those things that, especially when you're coming into drug court, is like a whole. It's just very overwhelming, very, very overwhelming. But with this housing program, it gives you a chance you don't have to do it alone, even when you're outside of the courts. And so, helping individuals restore time with their family is a huge thing for me. Helping them get a job, helping them just be productive individuals of society. And it's been a very successful year already. We've had 9 gentlemen graduate, and I'd say the first one just celebrated a year. He's now a manager at Chipotle's, training other people to be managers.
What happens when you say graduate? What does that look like?
Yeah, he just exited the program into his own house, and he's working as a manager. He just celebrated 1 year, and he's just one of the kindest, coolest individuals you ever meet as well, just seeing the smile on his face and just having his own place, and just like he's actually he was scared to death. You know what I mean? He was scared to death, and I remember that feeling, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that feeling moving into my permanent supportive disability housing and the scariness of living alone and not being at the drug courthouse where I had accountability. And so I remember that feeling, and, you know, and he was pretty scared at first. You know, it took him a couple extra weeks. We let him stay there a couple extra weeks until he really felt comfortable to move into his own place. And the beauty around that is also that the peer still gets to work with the individual. Even though he's housed over here, he's still connected with the individual. In fact, he took him out to lunch yesterday for his 1-year sobriety birthday, you know.
Wow.
Which is really cool, you know. You don't really get that in a lot of places, you know.
Yeah, a sense of, where you follow them for a little bit.
You follow them for a little bit.
I mean, when I was working at Columbia River, we had a housing program that I was part of, and that was kind of it. It was not just to get them housed, but kind of follow them for about 6 months after that.
Yeah, at least 6 months to a year, you know.
Because they say homeless people who are homeless or experiencing houselessness, you know, about 50% of them within a year will get housed, but 50% of those will end up back on the street again. Yeah. That's what I've heard. And, actually, in my experience, I believe it. You know.
I've seen it. I mean, I've seen it. I've delivered furniture to individuals' houses that we got housed, you know, it was about 6 years ago or so. And, you know, the individual never came. They never showed up. Mm-hmm. It's that bond that you have with the individuals when you're living on the street. You know, it's very strong, you know, and it's very, very strong.
And that's the other thing, too. I've noticed, like, certainly living in poverty or on the streets, it's a very communal existence. You know, you have people around you all the time. Mm-hmm. You're very networked. You share resources all the time to survive. Yeah, suddenly you put people in an apartment, let's say, where they close the door, click, and it's just them.
Yeah. Especially for individuals that have been to prison before. Mm-hmm. You know, it's back to those four walls, you know, and that alone feeling again. And you know, you do see a lot of it, of individuals, or you get the other part of it, you know, where they start to let their friends come stay with them. You know, they're on a voucher. They start to let their friends come stay with them, and now their friends are offering them a little bit of stuff, you know, and then it ends up off the hook. And that's what happened to that lady that I met underneath the tarp, you know. She went through that whole system, you know, on her mental health meds, was feeling good, and then got into her own place, 35% of her income, and then, you know, started letting those same friends come back over, and now she's back out on the street and off her medication and just talks in riddles, you know. Mm-hmm. And so, that follow-through aspect is definitely a piece it's getting implemented more and more. You know, like you said, Columbia River's doing it. The Council for the Homeless is doing that kind of stuff now too. But yeah, just having that peer aspect and just having that structure and accountability, having the home open and beds ready for, we just got approved by DOC, Department of Corrections, for individuals releasing from prison. And so we have one individual in the house now that's released from prison and is doing great. And that's now another referral source. We've also been accredited by Walker, which is the Washington Alliance of Recovery Residents, Quality Recovery Residents. And you know, being accredited by these individuals it just shows that you went the extra mile, that your house is accredited by the state to show that it's a safe place for recovery. Mm. They come down, it's a whole gambit of stuff that you have to go through, and paperwork and policies and all that stuff, but they also come down and check out the house. And not only check out the house, they interview the house guest, aside from any staff, or any staff goes away, and they interview just the guests themselves, which is I like that, because then you get their point of view as well. Mm-hmm. And it may not always be a great point of view either. It might, you know what I mean? Yeah. But there's always, you know, it can always be worked on.
So you just have a men's house now, or
this is just a men's house? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so it's a 4-bedroom house. It's over off Carlson Road, so it's kind of in the thick of it. But this will work for me. I'm right back in the community that I was a termite to, and right around the same people that I used to use drugs with. And but I've seen so much of the role model and the recovery, like it's evident in my life. Like so many of my friends that I used with are now in recovery and doing great in their life, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just been the attraction rather than promotion that they say in AA is I really dig into that, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, people that I never thought would get clean, like. I'm sure you met some of them before, and you're like, you never know, you know.
They're unrecognizable.
Unrecognizable, yeah. Some of them that were so far gone mentally that you thought there was, you know, and that's how they would live the rest of their life. But thankfully, through recovery and the rooms and 12-step and places like the Cafe and Pier 360 and Thrive to Survive and Columbia River and just... We are blessed with a lot of resources in this community. You know, Vancouver, Clark County has a lot of great resources when it comes to recovery.
How would you say Vancouver compares to Portland as far as resources? I mean, it's definitely a different animal as far as being obviously running the streets of both. But
yeah,
well, do you think Vancouver has something on?
I think just it's a smaller community, so it's a little bit tighter. So, you know, there's a lot of communities like Vancouver within Portland, I would say. You know, there's just your different sectors of it. But I think just the proximity of everybody being closer, you know.
It is a tighter town.
It's just a little tighter town, you know. And so, and it's named its own town, right? And so it's set aside from Portland. And, you know, there's a lot of people come all over the country, you know, a lot of people from California, too. You meet people all the time in the rooms that are from California that come up here for recovery because they heard recovery was on fire up here.
You know, there's one thing that I think obviously what Thrive does as far as, is really obviously your passion, whether it becomes offering services to not only just, let's say, a men's house like you had here before, but also the networking events. I mean, you have a real passion, but I think the thing that truly, I think, sets you apart and what really fascinates me is your ability to get funding, write grants. I remember the first time I talked to you, I was like, how do you do it? You know, he's like, I write grants. I go, how do you learn to write grants? He goes, I just watched YouTube.
Watch YouTube.
And I was like, what? You know, I went home right away and looked at grant writing on YouTube, but I realized this would be a deep dive, even on YouTube. It's not just a matter of just watching a 20-minute, thing. I was like, oh man, this is like, you made it sound way easier.
Some grant writing classes too. Went to grant writing classes. There's different programs that help you do it for you. You know what I mean?
Because let's face it. I mean, like you said with the house, you know, city Vancouver came down. You're able to find funding. You were able to network people to paint it. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems to be your superpower, I think, is just really to not only put together resources, but also to find, because let's say, you know, obviously you can put, you know, people could put their back into it, but when it comes down to it, you need to find funding.
Yes.
And it seems like, to talk to you too, when it comes to funding, it's like, some of it seems maybe right out the gate will they cut you a check, like you're talking about the insurance company.
Right.
But some of it seems like you just have to keep your receipts and turn it in. I mean, what would you say is more common? Actually getting cut a check or actually just having to basically justify funds one receipt at a time?
Cutting a check, really. I mean, we've been really blessed, man.
Yeah.
We've been really blessed. We worked really hard on building a strong foundation and name for Thrive to Survive, and it spreads out word to mouth, right? Word to mouth is one of the best supports of Thrive. And then, you know, finding, you know, like I said, I may have took a class for grant writing that said I had a certificate, but I'm not qualified, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm willing to learn and do the things that it takes to do it. But even better yet is find the people that know how to do it and ask them to walk alongside me to do it with us, so we can do it together. So that's really what Thrive is built on, is like my skills are very few far in between, right? But I'm willing to learn anything. I could try anything. I can do anything. But finding the people that know how to do it and do it right is the key, you know. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, my housing director is my father. You know, he's been doing it for VOA over there for 14 years, you know.
Okay.
And our business development is his boss. She's been doing it for 20-something years.
So VOA meaning Volunteers of America. Right?
Yeah, yeah. And so they, you know, they help with the housing piece, right? They know that piece. That's my passion, to provide that housing. These are the individuals that know how to do it.
Okay.
You know, our events coordinators, or, you know, everybody. Not everybody knows how to do the job when they start the job, but they're teachable and they're willing to learn, and they thrive.
Mm-hmm.
They really do. We don't micromanage over there, you know. A lot of things are loose, but our employees seem to thrive in that environment, you know, and that's how I thrive too, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Let me try it. Hey, I might mess up. I might mess up a couple times, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to learn from that, you know. I continue to learn from that. Everything that I do throughout the day is my schooling. That's my training, you know. The people that I learn from and meet. That's how I do what we do. You know?
Collaborative effort.
Collaborative effort. Like, one of my greatest mentors is Paul. You know, my business mentor is Paul from Fourth Plane Forward, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He's literally sat me down and taught me how to do operational budgets and spreadsheets and shortfalls and all those kind of things. And that, you know, when you're out shooting dope, you don't think about learning.
No.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
When you have a 7th grade education, you don't think about learning. But, you know.
You sound very teachable. I think the humility thing you're talking about, huh?
Yeah.
It serves you better than
it does.
Like when you're running and gunning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. So what was the first grant you ever wrote?
The first one we wrote, that was Rotary Club. Three Creeks Rotary Club. It was back a long time ago.
So you don't necessarily have to like reach out to like federal grants and stuff like that. Just you sound like just local.
You start with your community.
You
start with your community. You start with the people that support you. You know.
It does seem that way. Things like Lion Club, Rotary clubs.
Yeah.
You know, they do.
Rotary clubs.
Members do kind of put together a kind of a purse, so to speak,
yeah.
to which they go. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
You know, and then the big one is the mental health sales tax grant. You know, that's $1.6 million over 3 years. You know,
the mental health sales tax.
Yeah, it's
grant?
Clark County mental health sales tax. A lot of people don't even know about that.
I didn't know about it.
Yeah. Like, but it's knowing the. I guess it's knowing the people, right? You got to know the right people. And so, you know, that was a huge one, but that wasn't me. I mean, that was my heart's in it and my ideas, but it's my team that's able to put it together into a format that comes across to people that know what they're doing.
So not necessarily you writing grants or putting for funding, but you put together a team
that
has the skills.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So every one of them has my heart or my ideas or the program how I want to see it, but they put it into a format that is obtainable.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm getting an idea now. All righty. Well, I don't want to take you off script. I know you have something to talk about.
I did want to talk about the fentanyl crisis a little bit. I personally myself have I've never done the fentanyls, you know. Only fentanyl I've ever done was, you know, on my pain management back when I had my neck surgeries, you know, the patches and stuff like that. But the fentanyl crisis that we're seeing today, that I'm seeing today, is like there's the moral compass is out the window.
The desperation seems far greater. I mean,
far greater.
Like heroin, like, oh, it couldn't get any worse than heroin.
Right. And now people want to bring heroin back, bring cocaine back, you know, because people are dying at an alarming rate. And it's like the moral compass of these individuals, like their thought process it's beyond of what I've ever seen on heroin.
Well, I think you touched on it even with heroin. I remember, like, when I was in the streets, I mean, God, you know, they were so desperate not to be sick.
Yes.
They would just do all sorts of crazy things, you know, like they would never, you know.
Yeah.
You know, but you're saying, and I think I agree with you, that with fentanyl it's much worse. It's like that on times 10 almost.
Probably times 1,000. It seems like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll touch a little bit. I mean, when I was working, I mean, I would see before we started doing suboxone, you know, people are just coming off fentanyl. I mean, it
working.
It was horrible to watch. It was traumatic. I mean, I still have trauma. I remember. I mean, they'd be like, they'd be puking all over themselves all night. They'd be thrashing about because they couldn't hold still. They'd be just covered in sweat. You clean them up, and they'd do it all over again. Yes. They'd scream how the skin was on fire, and then eventually they would just lose their minds. They'd go running out the door.
Yes.
Probably to find the first person pushing a shopping cart, give them $5, and it's on, right? Yeah. And I went to my boss, and I was like, what the fuck? You know, I mean, because I was traumatized just watching them go through it. Because I had no idea it could be that bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that gives me back memories of heroin. I've had that feeling. I think a lot of what the difference is the access to it too. Mm-hmm. Like, it was not that easy to get freaking heroin like it is right now to get fentanyl. Like, fentanyl pills are on every freaking corner, and it's like $2 a pill or $1 a pill now, you know? Mm-hmm. And that $1 will make you feel better for at least an hour, you know? For heroin, that wasn't available like that either, you know? Mm-hmm. And you know, I couldn't say, like you said, you've seen those withdrawal things, and I've had a lot of individuals that we tried to help into recovery with the suboxone as well, and it just was not fitting the bill for them. And the methadone is the only thing that touched it enough to where they can feel okay. Mm-hmm. Feel okay, get a moment of clarity to where they can make a proper decision to save their life, you know. And methadone, it definitely gets a big stigma, and it used to be a lot worse, but I've seen it be very fruitful in individuals' lives here in Clark County. Like, personally, I know several people that their lives are on track. They got their kids back, they're working a job, and they're living a life of productivity.
Mm-hmm. I think I had that too. I was in the AA group, and I talked to a guy who was very active in advocacy for the recovery community in Olympia and all that. Mm-hmm. And he ran a Oxford house. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of when I first got into AA, and I was like, Suboxone, for example. I mean, but you could say methadone as well. Yeah. But is this really sobriety? Yeah. And he said it's the same thing. It's like, well, you got to look at yourself, man. Are they holding down a job? Yeah. Are they doing their chores? Yeah. Are they, seeing their kids again? It's not so much about, because I think you get some of the purest attitudes.
Abstinence individuals. Yeah.
But, I mean, and I've seen people that can pull it off, but it sure sounds like you went through a lot to get there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I think, I guess it touches on kind of harm reduction, right?
It's the harm reduction model. You know, it's a different approach than people are used to. Mm-hmm. It definitely was a different approach, 7-8 years ago, at least in our area, But I'd like to say that people have come around and are able to exist with others that are working a different recovery program than themselves. And it's really been a lot of advocacy, a lot of fighting, mm-hmm. A lot of, showing that it does work, getting Matt accepted into recovery housing. That was a huge deal. Like, Oxford went through a bunch of trainings and all that stuff to be able to accept Matt into
medically assisted treatment.
I've myself tried to get into Oxford back when I was in recovery and in on Suboxone, and was turned down from several houses. Mm-hmm. I ended up living in a bed bug infested, just halfway home, and thankfully drug court came and rescued me and brought me to their drug court house. And, I was the only one there that was on Matt, and at first some of the guys were pretty fucking shitty about it, but until they started to see the changes in my life and my kids, access to my kids coming over and stuff like that, they started to turn around. And like, I still, pretty close, or, we keep track of each other, the guys in the house from in the past, and they're doing good. I'm doing good, just a different path of life, just a different way to get to the same goal.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think too, it's like a lot of these, like, particularly like opiates, definitely, alcohol, meth, but opiates in their own way. I mean, they do permanent changes to the brain that can take a long time. The damage to the dopamine receptors.
Yes.
There's actually is physical changes in the brain, not necessarily hormonal, but it's literally just the actual structures.
Yeah.
And that can heal.
Yeah.
But I think that's where medically assisted treatment really comes into play. Is really kind of bridge the gap on, and help, take care of that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree or not.
No, I do. I mean, I've been through several trainings and, read into a lot about it. It does help heal the receptors in your brain, so it's evident in my life. I was on heavy mental health medications when I first got into recovery as well. I blew up to 320 pounds, I'm normally 100, 180 pounds, when I'm sober and not doing drugs, maybe 130 when I am. Pretty bad, pretty skinny.
No, you said the weight gain was probably just from the medication?
It was from the medication, the Zyprexa they had me on for
Sure.
my bipolarness, It was, that's what it caused, was weight gain and gynoplastia, but after 2 years of a lot of mental health treatment, therapist and stuff, I felt stable enough to be able to come off of it. And I've been off of it for five and a half years now.
Oh, good.
5.5 years now. So, it's just a tool or a mechanism to get to the same goal that everybody wants to be, and that's just a better way of living. Just for anybody out there, there is hope, man. And you hear it say a lot now today, the opposite of addiction is connection. Mm-hmm. It is connection. Just having those connections with people that's been through the same thing is, it makes you feel like there is hope, right? It's like the things that you've been through, the things I've been through, and it's like, look at your life now. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Doing great. This is good stuff. You're doing a podcast. You got a cool ass house.
I've been down.
Cool, right? You've been down. You told me some of your stuff, man.
Yeah, it's a
It
miracle.
It is possible.
It is possible.
It is. I used to think it was a miracle, but really, a miracle don't take no work, really.
No.
In my eyes, the work that you've had to do.
I didn't have no light on the mountain moment. It's like it was a step at a time. And it was a long healing. But I swear, if there's one thing, you got to just stay sober, for God's sake.
Yeah.
And that's a tall ask sometimes.
Tall
and
ask.
I never ever hold it against people that necessarily they go relapse and go back down, because I know. Because I don't know what it's like in their shoes on that, or just the demons they're chasing. I mean, I came from because I came from a real place of privilege growing up, and not everyone has that.
Addiction don't discriminate, that's for sure.
No, it
does not discriminate.
I think the biggest thing is it's the trauma.
It's the trauma.
How much trauma did you have in your life? What age did you have that trauma? And then how substance use really dovetails in when we talk about self-medicating. We were talking about that, but I mean really the self-medication of trauma. Yeah. And then where things like certainly I think often when I find people that get into opiates, particularly at a young age, it usually has something to do with trauma. And, where it's not even so much that they ever want to feel high, but they can't bear to be sober.
You just want to shut it off.
Yeah, and the pain is like so bad.
You want to shut it off. Yeah. It took, like I said, a lot of mental health sessions, in my life. Again, I'm progress over perfection. I'll always be fucked up in some sort of way. I mean, you know what I mean? And I'm okay with that. But, having that professional, there's the sponsor, there's the recovery mentor, there's that aspect of the recovery part. But also for me, for myself, having that mental health professional to sit down with, to go over those past traumas and really take a look at it and where my part played in and where I stopped being the victim and started playing the victim and then the victimizing. It really opened my eyes, and I had to relive through those traumas of the molestations, the beating, all those things, to where today, you know, when I talk to a mental health therapist, it's not because of all that stuff no more. It's because the stuff that we see in front of us working in this field, you know. I did want to highlight on that, you know, because it is okay to seek mental health treatment if you need it.
That's a real cultural thing, though. Like a lot of like the culture I came from, the idea of seeing therapy, a therapist, a psychologist, psychiatrist. I mean, that was very much accepted.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that a lot of different cultures, you know, there's a real stigma to that. You know.
Yeah, you don't talk about it.
Yeah,
that was it. You know.
Yeah, so it's like
you don't talk about it. If you talk about it, you're da 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 da. You know. That's how I grew up, you know. But that was only because they wanted to keep the trauma secret, the trauma that's being created, you know, a secret, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, just being able to touch on that a little bit, you know, being able to be a father today is my greatest success that I could ever have.
I bet.
That is. Like I said in the last interview, you know, that's what I wanted to be, you know. I wanted to be a father, you know. I like I said, I didn't have mine, and I wanted to be one. And I am a father today that my kids are proud of, and I'm proud of my kids. And we have a very good relationship, you know. And no money can buy that. No money can buy that. No money can buy love. So yeah, I'm rich. I'm rich with love. That's my currency, you know. That's my currency. Just being able to spend time with my mom, and you know, my like I said, my grandma and my grandpa just passed. They were my rock. They were my, you know, my go-to and my savior, and I was their little baby, and they always, you know, gave me what I wanted and stuff. But you know, for them to be able to see me in recovery and to be able to see the things that I've been able to succeed in and achieve, you know, whether they're here or gone, they were proud of me, you know. My mom, my stepdad, my father, my stepmother, my children, everybody is involved in my life. Like in the things that I do, like they're at the Thrive to Survive events. They're volunteering. My mom's serving food. You know, my kids are running around getting people waters. You know, my daughter works for me. My son shows up and pours coffee. You know, you know, that's the greatest gift of it all, man. Right there, it's being able to be that fortunate.
It's the thing you always wanted.
Yeah.
You found it in sobriety.
Found it. And there it is.
And man, you had to work for your sobriety.
We put work in.
Yeah.
We put work in.
Yeah.
But you know what? A lot of other people put work in for me too.
Yeah.
And I can never be more thankful for that.
I think I might have said last time, it's like I got sober because of my love for others.
Yeah.
But I stayed sober because of others' love for me.
Yeah.
You know.
That's beautiful. Yeah, there you go, right there. There you go. That's it right there. But yeah, I just grateful for the support, man. Just really am. Because myself on my own self-will, you know, it's not a good time. It's deep, dark, scary places people don't want to be, you know.
Well, do you think it's become less so as time goes on, as you get deeper and deeper in sobriety and more? Or recovery, I'll say. I think that's what we realize today. Recovery and sobriety are two different things. Yeah. But
they're two different things, and it can be the same thing.
Yeah,
too.
It's true.
It just depends.
And actually, they often are the same thing.
They often are.
In my life, they've proven to be. You know. And so yeah, I mean, I would not have recovery without sobriety. That I have to say, right?
Just depends on the individual. Yeah. But definitely, I've had sobriety from methamphetamines, from street heroin, you know, from alcohol. My drugs of choice.
Oh God, I was the worst alcoholic. Oh,
yeah.
God. Yeah. That's why I started doing meth, because I figured, like, meth may have a bad rap, I said, but, you know, nothing's worse than drinking yourself to death, right? It couldn't be any worse than that, right?
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Yeah, it was pretty bad, though.
Yeah.
It was pretty bad.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Meth will take you on a magic carpet ride.
Well, I think the thing about meth is just how long you can keep riding that damn train. You know, just the insanity of it, and yet you just keep doing it, because it never gets sober. It's like...
Yeah.
Like, at least with alcohol, man, you have to go to the hospital eventually, you know?
Yeah. You gotta get your stomach pumped. And yeah, for sure.
But, I mean, but if you don't go into psychosis, you don't have a lot of push, you know, to get off meth sometimes, you know. But I'd be homeless, you know, sitting out there. It's like, my life's great.
Everything's going good right now.
Awesome. Who needs a job, you know? It's like,
yeah. You'll see a lot of that in the summertime. When it comes wintertime and it's cold, you know, and you're like, oh, shit, maybe I better do something now, you know. It's like...
oh my gosh! Well, I sure find you an inspiration, Charles. I was so excited when I was going to get you in here.
Appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, like I said, my life's evident of what can happen when people band together to love on one another.
Yeah, and you and I see it. You know, often when I find you, I'll watch you sometimes when you interact with others, whether it be at the Recovery Cafe or at your events. Obviously, I'm not stalking you. I'm not saying that, you know, but it's like, but just, you know, when I have a chance, you know, the real opportunity to see. And, you know, you are an absolute inspiration. Everyone that comes talks to you, you know, and I see you keep a sense of humility about it. But, I mean, I think that's what inspires me. The one thing that I see, obviously, you know, with you is just literally how just your very presence and your success in the life that you live. I mean, I think it very much gives people permission to succeed as well.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, these are the things we're supposed to be doing in life, right? Mm-hmm. You know, it's like, these are things we're supposed to be doing.
Well, no one can do it alone, right?
No.
And sometimes going through like the stuff you and I do with addiction, homelessness, and all that stuff, it's like, if it means that we get to have the connections and the love and the depth of relationships that we have now, I mean, you could argue it was worth it, right?
Yeah.
Because people that, you know, the Elon Musks of the world. I mean,
I know recovery is real, man. I know that for sure because, you know, I was working at the Recovery Cafe and in walked a year prior, I seen a good friend of mine. I actually used to test his methamphetamines for him.
Yeah, make sure it wasn't poison.
Make sure it wasn't bad. You know, I was a heroin addict, and he didn't like heroin addicts, but he liked me. He let me hang around, and he let me test his stuff, and we became really close friends. You know, had a talk with him at 7-Eleven parking lot, you know, a year prior to this incident of him walking in the door at the cafe about, you know, tell him all the things I'm doing in recovery and how it's great. And you can just see the desperation of his eyes that he just wanted something different, you know. He's just one of the greatest guys you ever meet. And, a year later he did. He walked through the doors of the Recovery Cafe, and it was just like, you can tell he was just ready to surrender and ready to take suggestion and just fired up to do whatever he had to do to live a life of recovery, you know, and, you know, just, and then, you know, not only that, to be able, he stuck around so much and he was always there, like, and he always said he wanted to be a recovery coach. He wanted to work for the Recovery Cafe and stuff. And we just started up the telephone recovery program, you know, it was during the COVID time. And so I started up, I was heading up that program. And, you know, I had a spot to hire somebody, and I got to hire him, you know. You know, it's a trip to be able to, you know, be able to hire the guy that used to test his dope, you know. And then my friend, you know, I'm not going to name her name, but, you know, she was the first woman to put a needle in my arm. And, you know, now she's living an amazing life of recovery as well. One of those people I thought would always continue doing meth the rest of their life. Somebody that was able to, in my eyes, maintain it for the most part, right? Wasn't off the hooks and off the rail, you know. And now I got to write a letter of recommendation for that individual, you know, for their probation. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just like, there's so many gifts in recovery, man. So many gifts in recovery, you know. And just every day I'm amazed. Every day I'm amazed. Yeah.
Well, you're an amazing guy.
Yeah. All right, yes, thank you. I mean, I'm all, yeah. I'm still thinking, yeah. You know, it's like when I spoke at the Opioid Summit, you know, in front of 300 people and shared my story and stuff, it was like, it was the most terrifying thing in the world.
You don't lend yourself really to talking in front of others, do you?
I do it when I'm asked to do it. Yeah. I will, no reasonable request denied. I will do it. And I have done it, and I did pretty good at it. But like when I did that one at the Hilton in front of hundreds of people, just staring up there looking at me, I was scared to death, you know. And you know, everybody afterwards said I did a good job. It was great, you know. I even had the old Vancouver car theft task force lady come up to me and thank me for being in recovery and not stealing cars no more. And you know, I had this judge come up to me and a prosecutor and all those things and all those feelings that, you know, the normal people would just have such a huge high over and just feel so great. And me, I still hear that trauma stuff that I, you know, was told when I was a kid, that I'm just never amount to nothing. You'd always be a piece of shit. You're put all those things that, you know, I was told as a child. Those things still play in my goddamn head even when things like that happen. Mm-hmm. So afterwards, I found myself over at Winco putting ice creams and fucking zingers and cupcakes in my fucking shopping cart.
Sugar.
I was road raging, you know, and it's like I should have been feeling good about that. And that's something that I've worked on a lot. So it may sound like I'm humble, but in my head, I'm very happy about my life, you know.
Good.
Very happy and proud of the successes. So that was just a little bit. You know, we got Homeless and Housing Advocacy Day coming up in Olympia. That's a huge deal. I'm not sure if you've been up there before.
Olympia?
I thought I've seen you up there with us before.
No.
Yeah, so that's a huge deal every year. This will be my 6th year going up there. You know, my first year going up there, it was it fucking lit a fire under my ass for recovery. Standing on the steps of the Capitol up there in Olympia with like 900 other people from across the state screaming for housing justice, just looking around and just knowing, just being a face in the crowd fucking matters, you know. It was, and I was like, man, I just want to tell everybody about it. I want everybody to be able to feel that feeling. And so I continue to going up there, and yeah, this will be my 6th year up there, you know, representing Clark County as a constituent, you know, and that our voice does matter, and we're going to be fighting. You know, our big fight is for rent stabilization, you know, and to hopefully put a pause or a Band-Aid on, you know, so many people having to become homeless, you know, because of the high rates of rent, you know. The landlord's just doing whatever they want, kicking people out, you know. And it's just, you know, especially a lot of our homeless around too. I know the ones we see downtown and whatnot, but, you know, out on the east side in the Safe Park and stuff like that, we've seen a lot of people, like older ladies driving Mercedes-Benz, you know. Like their old man died, and now it's just them and their autistic grandchild, and they can't afford the rents that they did at the house, you know. You can see down at Fish, you know, there's people in the BMWs and Mercedes-Benz and stuff, you know, coming to the food bank because it's just the high price of everything. And not being able to afford those rents that, you know, people used to be able to. And hopefully with this rent stabilization, it'll help out a lot.
Think it'll pass?
Yes.
Yeah.
It'll pass. Yeah. It's been spoken. It's been spoken into existence.
Well, I think we're fortunate. Washington State is very progressive.
Yes.
Yeah.
All the priorities we went up and fought for last month, I think it was, for Recovery Advocacy Day. All those are pushing forward, you know, building a capital budget for quality recovery housing, to be able to give a person a 6 months of vouchers to be able to have that time to heal and build their recovery supports and then get a job, instead of getting a job and your job becomes your recovery and you're back to where you were. I've been asked a few years in a row to be the legislative captain for 49th district, and I've always turned it down because I wanted to make sure I knew what the hell I was doing.
Yeah.
And then the year that I picked to do it, we ended up having more people than ever. I think there was 28 from our district that went up there. I think there are 40 altogether with the bus and everything in the different districts. And
that's another skill set, pushing legislation.
That's a lot. I love it, man.
That's another. Yeah.
That's one of my huge passions, and it was because of this. I guess I was spoiled in the early years of being exposed to it because, like, every bill we advocated for was passed that year. Just knowing that our voice does matter. Like, we are our legislators' boss, right? We are the ones that are supposed to be the ones that are driving their decisions.
Well, a
lot of people don't realize that.
Well, there's a lot of cynicism, I think, when it comes to government. But I mean, in a democracy, we are the government.
We are.
Yeah, and many people don't.
We are the government.
Yeah, we are.
We are the government. I've lived off the government, and now I work for the government. Really, I mean, if you look at it, right, and being able to build pretty close relationships with our local legislation, Monica Stonier and Sharon Wiley and Annette Cleveland, and like they know who you are and stuff, and you keep showing up. Like, it shows that we really do care, and we do know that with their support we can make change. With their support we can make change. And they're local. They're right here in our backyard. Like, people, I don't think people realize that. Like, I just went out to lunch the other day and seen Monica Stonier at a restaurant,
And who's Monica Stonier?
Monica Stonier, she's our representative for 49th District.
49th District, okay.
Yeah, House Representative. Yeah. And she's been a huge supporter, especially for recovery and behavioral health and mental health.
Well, it's an issue.
Homelessness, it's right in her backyard, too. Like, she's seeing the same things we're seeing. And she too is looking for a solution that works for us.
Sometimes with Vancouver, the reason why they seem so, well, I think it's like they seem to really take the issue seriously is I think they're terrified to be like Portland. They will do absolutely anything possible to not be a Portland.
Yeah.
It's like they're willing to. I mean, they seem much more eager to pass legislation.
Yeah.
Like Vancouver City, I'm impressed with Vancouver, to tell you the truth. I mean, they put forward a lot of initiatives.
A lot of initiatives. A lot of initiatives. Yes. Yeah, and they're stepping up to the game. And
well, you got it. I mean, that's the thing. It's like it'll get away from you.
Yeah, and it had. I mean, it's evident, right? It'll get away from you, and it had, for a little bit, but they stepped up and came up with programs and ideas and stuff that are moving forward. But we need more housing.
Yeah, and where are you going to put them?
And we need more people. We need more peers and professionals to be able to relay those skill sets to the individuals that never had those skill sets to live too. I think a lot of that needs to happen. A lot more of that needs to happen, especially before housing began. Like the conversation we had earlier, we can build 1 million houses and put people in those houses, but for the most part, many of them ain't going to stay, without the proper supports and skill sets.
Well, they become, particularly like the longer they're out there too. Well, one, if they don't have mental health addressed. 2, if they don't have trauma addressed.
Yes.
3, and also the longer they're out living outside, it's almost like they become deinstitutionalized in a way.
Yes.
It's
just like prison.
There's a skill set that it takes to get along and live in a society with other people. A community with other people. I mean, it's like people we'll see like the tent side of the freeway and all the trash that's all around it, and they'd be like, why do they let it go? I wouldn't mind. This is a classic, right? I wouldn't mind it so much that they were there as long as they kept the place clean. I mean, it's like, whatever. And I'll just shelf that for a second. But the thing is that, I mean, like, I keep my step clean. I keep it out there. I keep it looking nice. Hey, I got flowers growing. I'll have some roses. But, it's really not for me. It's for my neighbors, right? And because I feel like I'm a sense of community. The skill set that it takes to live with other people.
Yes.
Where these people, they don't feel, I mean, people who are homeless, they are your neighbors. They are in your community, but they do not feel that you want them there, obviously, and that's why. And that's why why should they clean up? Mm-hmm. Well, aside from the fact that they don't have trash service,
Right, right.
But yeah, I mean, they don't feel a sense of community.
Abandonment, loneliness. Mm-hmm. I mean, every single person that I look at that, that's out there is any people that I look at. Like, I always try to think that at one point that person was a child and that person was at a pure heart. Mm-hmm. And then something happened along the way, because nobody really chooses this shit. Mm-hmm. Something happened along the way that was uncopable, that they found an escape just for that minute, that minute is lasting a lifetime for them, And it's like, yeah, there is a lot of garbage outside of that tent, because if you were to put yourself in that individual's shoes, just say, no matter how they got there, no matter what happened, but in that situation, it's like that sick feeling that you've seen of that gentleman just crawling out of his skin, like, that's the only thing they're fucking worried about. Yeah. They don't want to feel sick, and it's doing whatever they got to do to get it. And so garbage and aesthetics become the last thing, and then you got people that are more manageable with their addiction, that are still living outside, that do take care of their stuff,
Mm-hmm. But, well, there might be a little meth involved too.
There's a lot of meth. There's a lot of meth involved. There's a little more OCD, and but, a little more OCD. But it is possible to exist with our unhoused that are struggling, and that's evident of the Safe Park project. Yeah. Like the neighborhood association, when we took over that project and made it a program, they loved their neighbors. Like, they were out cleaning up. Mm-hmm. We had to do volunteer work details and cleaning up around, because that's their neighborhood too.
For those that don't know, Safe Park essentially is where people can park their cars and live in their cars, yes. But basically it's kind of almost like a gated parking lot. It's at the
without a gate, but yeah.
But I mean, I say that term loosely, but essentially it's out of the park and ride C-Tran old area. Yeah. And people, but it's various stalls, and they can park and offer a certain relevant sense of security and safety that they wouldn't have just parked out on the streets. And of course, usually living in cars, and people are out there in the communities that they don't put cabs in their car because they can't afford it. And then of course the car gets towed and their home rolls away, and
and that's all they have. So the city started that program, and it's pretty much a security detailed individuals, a safety aspect, and we took it over and built an actual program around it, and had pretty much 24-hour peer support, so these individuals can we help them overcome their barriers. We're able to transport, we're able to take them to DSHS, all those things that our peer does for our house, we're able to do those for those individuals at the Safe Park. And through, it took a while, but through building that program, we were able to successfully exit and house over 60 people last year. Yeah.
Impressive.
Yeah. A lot into permanent supportive housing. It wasn't just us. It was also working with our community partners.
Yeah. Well, I think that's places like that, whether it be like the tiny home communities or certainly Safe Park. I think it's really just to give a stable address, quote unquote, so to speak, where social services can find them. Yeah. Because if they're out there in the wind, you're never going to be able to.
Yeah. And they that's their home too. Like that's their home. We can't go inside their home. We can't tell them what they can do inside their home. It's just it's great to see all the community partners breaking down those silos and working together. Mm-hmm. It's something that 7 years ago you didn't see, really. You didn't see it all, really. And it's like over this time, it's just breaking down those silos and working together. And it's like we're all going towards the same thing, and funding is always an issue, but I always say we can all eat and still do what we do and love on people,
I like that.
We can all still eat if we work together,
Yeah. We can all still eat and do what we do.
Yeah, we can still all eat and be able to love on people and help people. And hopefully one day we don't have to do this. Hopefully one day it won't be a thing, there is other countries that's been able to, eradicate the homelessness, But it took a lot of support and a lot of radical ideas, and very successful.
Well, someone's making money off poverty, right?
It's set up, yeah. It's not the justice system is set up exactly the way that they want it, and it's the same thing with this. Especially the further you get into it, it's like you see, like, okay. So what we try to do is just try to focus on that person right in front of us and work with them the best we can through the whole thing, just one person at a time, and then the events is, it brings a lot more people together to be able to have access to more people, like, people like the Molina program, it's like they would have to go out and find their clients, they would have to try to seek out clients to bring into their programs, but to be able to be at our events and be able to bring in 60 new clients, or that's a high number. Let's just say 10 new clients in one day, that people that didn't have health care, didn't know about health care, that now have health care and are working with Molina and now are able to have access to a doctor and a primary care physician and get those special medications that they need. Well, those are 10 people that they, might have took a whole year to find. So it's good for all of us,
Yeah, Medicaid, right?
Medicaid, yeah.
That's the magic,
yeah.
Secret sauce.
Secret sauce. Secret sauce. What advice do you have for somebody struggling with addiction?
Oh.
I got questions for you.
You do?
I do.
What advice do I have?
Suggestions. What suggestions?
What suggestions? Look, if you do nothing other than stay sober, your life will get consistently better. Yeah. Now, there are other things you can do that will help you enjoy your life more, and will happily help you rise faster. But I think, because a lot of it is like, whenever I see someone out there, whether it's on the street or, I am a firm believer, that people naturally rise.
Yeah.
To their feet, to the top. And if they don't, it's because something's holding them down.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's a lot of reasons why people use substances. I think we've touched on them with things like trauma or fear or biochemical, situations like certainly bipolar or depression or anxiety, which often can be the result of trauma as well. But you really got to start removing the barriers. I've heard said that 50% of the people out on the streets were in the foster care system.
Yeah.
50%.
50%?
And then, 50%, and wow. Where people didn't have support or the people lean on, so you can't look at someone out there and judge them through the same lens that you judge your own life or look at your own life. They have, and I think the first step to that is seeing them as human.
Yeah.
That everybody is somebody.
Everybody's somebody.
And and that I think that's a real gift that you have as well. Is when you see people come into your events, you know what it's like to be that, and you see them as they're human like anybody else. They want the same things. They have the same dreams, the same fears. And what's holding them down? There's always one that I always think of too is when I see that one tent that's just like way separated out.
Yeah.
And I know I go, that's schizophrenia, most likely.
Usually.
Yeah, and then they get isolated.
Or a lot of warrants.
But I'd say, but why I say, look, if you do nothing other than stay sober, you can start working on the other stuff. Yeah. But just got to stay sober long enough. To use the cliche in AA is to wait for the miracle to happen, right?
Yeah.
But the things that hold people down, the trauma, mental illness, mental health challenges, and substances, you start removing some of those barriers, and substance use is a big one. You start working on the others. But I tell people, to get back to your question, if you do nothing other than stay sober, nothing else.
Yeah, just don't pick up today.
Yeah, nothing else, you will slowly start to rise to your feet. You won't even be able to help yourself. Yeah. It will be a natural, because like I say, our natural state is dignity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we, and so it's like, it's only if something's holding us down that we don't achieve our level of potential or dignity. So
Yeah.
so that's it.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. I just envisioned just like somebody just sunk underwater to the bottom, you know, and like being buoyant people.
Well, and
like shedding that thing off that you just, now you're swimming.
Well, I think it actually came, that my realization of that came actually because my mother, we were riding, I was a small child in the car, mom driving, and I looked at this house, and the house had just like moss grown over it, and the roof was becoming basically destroyed. No one had gone up there with a broom and just swept the debris off.
Right, that's what you think, yeah.
Yeah, and my mother, I go, why are they letting their house fall apart like that? He goes, probably because there's illness there, And basically, that someone's not healthy, and you can think either like physical ailments where they just aren't well enough to get up there,
right?
Financial trouble where they can't pay someone to get up there, or I don't know, a little bit. But I thought it's like alcoholism or something like that, where basically, and that basically you can see that, it's like when things start to fall apart around someone's ears, it's because usually there's an illness that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, I think with the right supports, we can all thrive, Yeah,
I think you're right. We're not solitary hunters.
No.
We're not like some cat roaming the desert or something like that.
No.
We're I think what makes human beings, if we're not the strongest or the fastest, and you can question whether we're the smartest, but
you're right.
But it's the fact that we work together.
Yeah, we work together,
and basically a cooperation on levels that are just. You have formed a community around you.
Yeah.
And the strength is, and you realize that the strength, and that's why you don't micromanage it, because it doesn't have to be you.
No, it doesn't have to be me.
It's like, you just.
Thank God.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be, right?
And try to free up time to do the things that I love doing, too. Other things I love doing. And that's spending time with my kids and having fun in recovery.
And you give people a chance to succeed, on their own merits.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's empowering in itself,
Yeah. That's it, provide an individual with a platform or an avenue to succeed. That's it. That's what other people have done for me. Mm-hmm. Just to be able to continue to provide that for people, if anything at all. That's what I want to be able to provide. And that's the same for people that work for me or people in the community,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, but that addiction thing, and it's persistent.
It's persistent. You're damn right.
It's the same people again and again.
Yeah. I mean, I've had to take the gun out of the hand of an individual that you would look at and think that they had it fucking all. Mm-hmm. That they had it all fucking together. They got all the money in the world. And 5 years into their recovery, those things that they didn't work on. That happened back in those past traumas, they come creeping right back up. And those insecurities and those fears.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think you touched on that too, about the importance of a licensed or educated health professional, mental health professional. I mean, they got skills, I mean, and I think it's like evidence-based care.
Evidence-based, yeah. They're able to walk you through these things that they've learned, even if they've never. Like I had a real hard problem. Like originally, like I went through like probably 10 different mental health therapists. Because I was looking for the one that's been to jail or, has a record or has done drugs before. And
I think you touched on something too. Like they're not all created equal.
No.
And and if you don't like your therapist, find another one.
Yeah. And I did. I finally found one that, I identified with, and all of those things just seemed to open up a whole lot easier, and it's taking those weights off, it was like shedding that backpack of 1,000 million pounds. It came off, man. And I remember actually leaving that last appointment with that lady, and it was just, I felt just free. I felt free, like actual freedom. It was pretty cool.
Like you could take a full breath.
Yeah.
I've had that experience.
That freedom that you look for, when you're staring out the window in prison, and you see all the world going by, and you want that freedom. It's like that kind of freedom, but on 1,000,000 times better. We just want to be free, loving, happy people.
Thank you so much for coming here.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man.
Oh, yeah.
I hope you can get something out of this. Or
I think
a
lot of people are going to get something out of it.
I'm just grateful to be able to do it with my daughter. That was really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a highlight right there of life, you know?
Yeah, it was fun watching her talk with such passion.
Yeah. Yeah, she's a passionate lady. She's tough. She's tougher than I am, that's for sure.
Well, thanks again, Charles.
All right, thank you, man.
Thank you for listening to our podcast today. I'm Matthew the Peer. I hope you join us next time.